let's get rolling. So welcome everybody here today to our fourth webinar in the Mindshare series that HTA puts on. So welcome everybody. And in a few minutes, we'll invite our moderator, Eric Thies of DSI Luxury Technology, to take the mic. And our panelists, I'll name them, and Eric's going to go into more of a formal introduction. But we have David VanWert of VanWert Technology Design, Bryan Mills of Mills Technologies, Jason Voorhees of Cantara. So both Jason and Bryan are HTA certified integrators, and David VanWert is a technology designer and engineer. So it'll be interesting for you to hear things from his point of view and what he's able to do out there. It's a very appropriate topic, something very near and dear to my heart, as you know, HTA is very much a proponent of our integrators building stronger relationships with architects, designers, and builders, and establishing yourself as a professional and a design professional. And it's very important because too many of them don't look at you as a designer; they look at you strictly as a contractor. And that mindset has to change. It has to change through education. You get out there repeating that over and over again. Last year, I was going to moderate a panel at the Tomapalooza event, which was going to precede CEDIA Expo, and I was given an architect that I've never met before as a panelist. So when I was calling to talk with him about our industry and asking him what he thinks about technology design and getting an integrator part of his projects early to lay everything out, he said to me, "Oh, that'd be great if they would actually do that, if integrators actually would do design." But what I forgot to just tell you is, before I asked him that question, I asked who he was working with, and one of the two integrators he was working with is a really good HTA certified integrator. So once he told me, I wish an integrator would actually do design, I said, well, one of the gentlemen you just named does that. He does? How much does he charge? I'll just give him a check and introduce him to the client if I know what his fees are. So I called that integrator right away and I said, hey, just speaking to so-and-so, this architect, oh yeah, great guy. He has no idea you do design and engineering and charge for it. He does it, get on the phone. So it's weird that there's this disconnect. So the vast majority, about 95% of HTA certified integrators do design and engineering. Are you charging for it? So I'll get off my soapbox on that, but this is a very important topic. Before I turn the mic over to Eric, our next webinar on May 25th is about cybersecurity, how to protect your clients. Register for that will come in your HTA dealer newsletter, which should be out sometime next week. And this is an important topic as well. Here's why. Hopefully you have a cybersecurity solution. If you don't, when I'm talking to the designers and architects and builders and explaining what integrators do, they assume you're offering that. So if you're not offering it and that's their assumption, so something to consider. Also want to do a shout out to all our supporting brand members you see on the tiles on the screen here. These are the manufacturers that support HTA's mission of providing excellence in the home technology industry. These are the brands that deserve your support, and they are supporting our mission to go out there and educate the architects, designers, and builders. So great brands that we're happy to be associated with. And now let's turn this over to Eric Thies, and I will stop talking.
Hi guys. Okay, so again, just a reminder of who's on our panel here. We've got David VanWert from VanWert Design. David's out of LA, but works all over the country. What David does is he's a specifier. So he on his own, or an architect or a builder will find David, hire him to do design only. David doesn't sell any equipment. He just specifies. He'll help the client develop a budget, a scope, and then he'll help the client find an integrator wherever this home is in the country. And he'll manage the bid process and sort of do construction management as it goes through the technology, or technology construction management as the project goes through its process. I'll be able to speak today, I promise. David, is that an accurate representation of what you do?
Pretty close. Yep, absolutely. Right. In a nutshell.
And David also does theater design. He does not only work for homeowners, he works for integrators too. So if you need someone to help you do acoustical engineering or theater design, or even if you don't have really a sort of a design and documentation part of your company, that David can probably help you there. Anyway, Bryan Mills, the legendary Bryan Mills of Mills Technologies in Chicago, great integrator, known for educating architects. And then my friend, Jason Voorhees, the best branding person in all of the CI industry of Cantara in Orange County, another great integrator. So that's everybody. All right, so let's jump in, guys. Bryan, when did you start charging for design?
In terms of part of our offering, I took over my business 12 years ago. So we're a third generation family business. My background had been in product design. And one of the things when I kind of first came in, it seemed crazy to me that we just were like lumping design into our installation. So more to call attention to it than actually turn it into a profit center. When I took over, we kind of separated out, and even in our logo, like if you look at our logo, we have it broken out, but design, installation, support, and really just started kind of making that a line item to communicate to both the end users and the design community that like that's something that we offer.
Got it. And then, so what % of your projects start out with a design fee only without a full contract attached to it?
Yeah, I would say it's still a low percent. It's still probably 5 or 10%, but it's kind of morphed into. We're still brought into the design phase. It's just, it kind of, a lot of the times it just rolls naturally now, right? But I'd say in terms of that, where there's an actual design contract, it's probably 5 or 10%. Got
it. And then how do you charge for that?
So, I mean, what we tell of our architects is if you want to, or the client, use $2 a square foot. If we're kind of going all in, I mean, I think one of the things about our industry is we make pricing really hard. So we say, hey, that's a ballpark. But what we end up doing, we have a real simple template. We lay out, it's this many meetings, this many revisions. We're going to estimate this many hours, but ultimately it's just hourly. So it's $175 an hour for principal design. It's $150 an hour for CAD work. We'll give kind of monthly billing statements, but it's usually based on an estimate, what ends up being about, $2 a square foot.
Got it. All right, Jason, when did you start really pushing for design work before you would give out a bid?
Well, a couple of years, 6 years ago, I had lunch with a good friend of mine named Eric Thies, and he was telling me about this revolutionary idea, so I thought, man, that's an idea that I should steal, and so we started doing that about 6 years ago, and it's been great. And very similar to Bryan, we're at about $150 a foot. And I would say, though, that about 50% of our sales revenue, not necessarily the count of projects, but the revenue is coming from projects that originate as a design contract. And I'm trying to take it to like 90%.
Got it. So before you started selling design, what were your limiting beliefs in terms of your ability to sell design clients or people who were just saying, oh, no, just give me a bid? This has been our industry standard, is we just been giving away all our expertise.
Yeah, that's been one of the happy side effects of us shifting our thinking is I think we were very much a company that thought that we needed to be one of 3 bidders clamoring to the general contractor, to please just let us have the plans, let us do a bid, let us get in the mix, and let's put some fucking huge discount on it and hope that we get some attention in the trailer. We were that company for many years, and then when we started thinking about design contracts, that forces you to go chase down the architect and the interior designer, right? Get in on the project earlier when the design contract is relevant. So we've been able to bypass that mess, that shark frenzy with the general contractor, and our name is already attached to the project before it gets to that point. And so we've seen our win rate go up dramatically as a result of the design contracts, because we're on it already. I think we have, from a design contract to an actual full-blown contract, I would say that we have an 80 to 90% win rate conversion on those.
Got it. And so how do you handle the builder that just says, we don't need a design, here's a set of plans, do what you do? Give me a standard spec for, this 10,000 square foot custom home. What do you say? How do you respond to that?
So if we already have a very well established win rate with that general contractor, then we'll play the old game. If we don't have any track record, we will insist on a design contract. And we've been surprisingly successful. We just won a design contract last week, relatively small project. And I had just no confidence that the guy was going to allow the client to sign with us for a design contract. And in the room, in the meeting, the client said, "Okay, let's do it," because it's such a small amount of money, right? Like the whole strategy with this is the client and the builder are wrestling with this multi-$100,000 choice, and they don't know how to make the choice. And then we come in and we're like, no, you don't have to make that big choice now. You just need to make a small choice right now. It's $20,000, and it's most likely refundable towards your big project anyway. They're like, oh, thank God. It's genius. It's genius in that sense. And you get a lot more yeses than you would think in that situation.
And what's your best guess in opportunities you've missed out on because you you basically held your line, like, no, you got to pay for design and get a bid from me. Do you feel you're doing good projects? You feel you're choosing the right customers when you draw the line in the sand?
I mean, I don't even think that way because when if I think about old Cantara, I employed a guy full time to just ruin his life, making proposals that went nowhere, that probably never even got looked at. Right. So it's like, yes, we may be losing valid projects because we're holding our ground, but that's fine compared to being bitches, being schmucks with general contractors and having them just do nonsense work for them so they can be heroes to the homeowner and be like, look, I got you 3 bids, and look, all along I told you to hire my favorite buddy, and his price is the lowest, so let's just go with my favorite buddy. And meanwhile, 2 other AV companies have spent the last 2 weeks building a masterpiece bid. I'm tired of it. I'm over it.
It seems to be a good way to weed out the tire kickers versus the real clients, because if you're asking for a small amount of money and the client's balking, they're probably not your client. Maybe. Yeah, I get that. That's
and then we find that once we get signed on for design, the client relaxes, the client becomes receptive, and that's really when we get to show them some of the more exotic James speakers, and we get to have 5 minutes to talk about a video wall instead of a Sony projector or something like that. And you get a little bit more of that playground space with the client to have fun in that design, because there's no consequence to, sure, I'll hear you out. And they get that education, they get some exposure, and almost every single time we're putting in equipment far more expensive than we would have been able to do if it was just a silly shark frenzy bidding situation, where we would have played it safe and put in low-end Sonance everywhere, but now we're on a design contract. We're like, hey, why don't you just listen to these $7,000 a pair James speakers?
Right. Bryan, do you find that too, that if you're in a design process, the ticket price tends to go up and clients seem to relax a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think so many great points that Jason made to unpack here. But I mean, I think the biggest issue we all have is that it's really hard to educate and sell at the same time, right? And it's an adversarial relationship a lot of times that way. And what's great is to take all that away. I'm not going to sell you anything right now. You come sit with me at the same time, the same side of the table, and let's do what I'm good at, and let's talk about how technology can enhance your life. And I think when you start, from that standpoint, certain areas, it becomes clear that certain things are more important, aesthetics, or, the overall sound, or whatever it may be. But I think not only do you see it go up, you see it go up in the areas where the client cares. And I think that's, that's what's really key to the process, is you build that trust so much more quickly. And when they trust you, then, you've won.
Yeah. So David, I want you to weigh in here, because you were on the integrator side and you were selling right into the same market. Then you went to the specifier side. Boy, you became a really good salesman when you went to the specifier side. Holy shit.
It became a lot easier.
I'm looking at these specs that David's come back with. Man, he must have been to like one of those super sales seminars for like a month or something. These systems are crazy, but speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head, Bryan, and there's that disconnect, and being purely on the design side, you can remove that sales process from it 100%. There, especially from our standpoint, to where the client's aware that, we do not sell products or program or any of those services. We truly become a member of the design team. And one of the analogies that we use all the time, talking with any new partner or client, is that look at how the process is done. When someone's building or remodeling a new home, you have all of these folks. You have an architect, a landscape designer, a lighting designer, a mechanical engineer, an electrical engineer. And our analogy is, why don't you have somebody for arguably the most complicated part of the house, being the technology as a whole? And you see light bulbs instantly go off to where that makes sense to architects, clients, homeowners. They'll get it because they've already hired all of these folks. And so if you establish yourself from that standpoint, it becomes much easier, and you become a part of the design team rather than a part, just a sub of the GC.
So David, just to smash some limiting beliefs that clients won't pay for design, what's the biggest design fee you've charged a client?
Biggest design fee was in the 300 range.
So
three and change.
Wow.
Yeah.
So 300K for design only, people. That is not a wire or a TV or any piece of electronic equipment.
Or programming. No, none of that.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And what was the value of that project?
I believe it was about, let's say 1.8, 1.9, somewhere in that ballpark.
So a significant portion of the project.
Yeah, and that one in particular, I mean, that was, obviously kind of an oddball that doesn't happen very often.
Right.
But in general, I mean, we tend to, theater aside, because we treat the theater as its own entity. We tend to charge around the $3 to $4 a foot range for all in engineering. So that includes soup to nuts, outside of just a floor plan. So there's quite a more extensive package that's included for that. So
well, let's talk about the deliverables that you guys give. Now David might take it to the next level, but so if someone's paying you, Bryan, $2 a foot, what do they get for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that it's always important to point out is, the difference between design and design documents, because I think one thing I've seen in our industry is we kind of conflate the two. So, I mean, when we talk about design, it's the process. It really is taking the voice of the customer and translating that into to meaningful criteria. So there will be a series of meetings. It's an ideation meeting where we just kind of take in what experiences you have in the past, what do you like, what do you dislike, just a whole bunch of those probing questions. Typically kind of a preliminary design and then a refined design. But in terms of the deliverables, we have 3 phases for kind of our project. For the design phase, it's typically going to be a narrative, typically like a D-Tools-esque bill of materials without pricing on it. And then all of the RCP drawings, the rack elevations, I'm sure I'm missing a few, and then the IO drawings. So that would be kind of our typical package. Really, so then that could go to the next phase where it gets put out to bid.
Got it. And speaking of that, a lot of people sell the design in a way that, hey, I'm going to give you a spec, and at the end of that process, you can go out to bid if you want, right? Obviously, we prefer that you hire us, but Bryan, what do you think the percentage of ones that go out to bid after you go through the client with the design process are?
So ones where we would actually bid on it, like it's in a market that we would do the work in, I think we've only not won one at this point. It's natural, right? I mean, and it's a mutual vetting process too. I mean, sometimes you go through that process and say, hey, I'm not the right person probably for this client. But I think once you kind of build their trust and show your expertise, it's almost all the time. Now we do work in other markets where we do design, maybe an architect or a client that we know that wants to do work in another market. We typically don't do installation in other markets unless certain criteria are met. So, in those cases, we're actually helping kind of more as David probably does, actually select the integrator and even potentially do some contract administration. So in those, we're turning those over to other companies. And I mean, that's interesting too. You get to see how other companies run, you build some relationships. But those we typically, we're just doing the design on.
Got it. So Jason, same question to you. What's your deliverable when a client hires you for design?
Yeah, I think we provide a little bit less than Bryan. We're not providing schematics, but we are providing electrical requirements for the rack and BTU output of the rack, because we think those things are really important to get established in that like pre-construction period of the project. And then I think common to all three of the panelists, Eric, you're asking about like physical deliverables, but I think the most important thing that we are delivering is that the homeowner now has education and confidence in what he's even getting, because the old way of doing this is 3 car salesmen trying to sell the client a car, and the client doesn't even know what the fuck a car is, and it becomes this like personality contest rather than the client making educated decisions and getting even excited about what he's going to do to his dream home. So I think that's why this whole concept of the design contract is a win-win-win, for the partner, for the client, and for the integrator, because oftentimes confidence for the homeowner doesn't show up until like 2 weeks after they move in. And they're like, you know what, this was great. I'm really happy that I did all this, right? And until 2 weeks after move-in, you're dealing with a lot of friction, a lot of suspicion, right? From the wife, right? Because she's never been really involved in this. The interior designer hasn't really been consulted in a lot of these decisions, because all this shit was made by a sales engineer just being told, win the project. So when you do this, what I now call the right way, the design first way, clients happily signing that contract, and they're excited about their crazy stuff that they're going to get, and the whole team is too.
So when you do a design, what percentage of those go out to bid?
Yeah, like Bryan, like I think 1. Yeah. So it's rare.
So we've established that 1, the ticket price goes up when you get a client into a design contract. We're all in agreement on that. 2, we're all in agreement on, if you get hired for the design, you are most likely the guy that is going to do the job by a huge percentage. So takeaways, people. Okay, so David, let's talk about, you offer a more intense design package than probably most integrators. Why don't you talk about a little bit what's in your package?
Sure.
Obviously we've got, device locations, scope of work, equipment lists, things like that. What are some of the other things that you offer that maybe others should consider offering?
Yeah, I mean, through the whole process, like Bryan mentioned, we do kind of that deeper needs analysis early on with the client. From that, on the back end, then we're starting those drawings. In kind of that first presentation meeting to a client, we're presenting a design intent package along with a budget So they can get the high level bells and whistles of, the different features of the IT system, the security system, the AV system, the theater, whatever it might be, and then budgetary numbers attached to that. And then we get sign off on those budgets. And it's just a lump sum. Audio is 190K, video is 60K, that type of thing with zero detail, and get the go ahead to continue to move forward in that manner, or VE right then and there. So the client, from the first couple of weeks in, know what they're getting themselves into. From there, then we develop that package to provide, like you said, the floor plans, the detailed RCPs, interior elevations, conduit requirements, power requirements, rack elevations, BTU output, like Jason mentioned, basically how things are going to be integrated with third-party systems, from HVAC to to lighting to security, all of the various elements there. We include camera coverage maps for CCTV. All of this is also done. We do everything in 3D. So we can pull and develop 3D views or renderings as needed, which comes in handy, especially for theaters. So for theaters, we do full construction documentation in terms of sound isolation and acoustic treatments and RT60 calcs, full DCI required drawings if you have any Dolby clients or if it is a Dolby theater. And then a detailed bill of materials. So every single part and piece in the system, from the Sonant speaker down to the Crestron touch panel and a data jack, and what those are. The benefit is because once we get to the end of that process, is we do select 3 vendors. So we get together with the team, being the client, architect, contractor, et cetera, and say, okay, who do we like? Who don't we like? We kind of weigh in who we think that some good fits might be, and then we help manage that whole RFP process. We identify the vendors, we send it out, and then also the benefit for the integrators is it takes a lot of work off the plate. Now they have a budget. We don't tell them the budget, but the client knows what the budget is, and we're working towards that budget. And when an integrator, 3 integrators are bidding it, they're all 100% bidding apples to apples. They're all bidding exactly the same thing. Obviously, there's some flexibility there. Clients, and myself included, really don't care if it's Marantz versus Integra versus Sony ES for an AVR, whatever it might be. All of that stuff's flexible and interchangeable. A lot of it, Sonant for Origin, and that type of kind of level playing fields. And then we level everything. As Jason mentioned, with kind of the Wild West of 3 guys who's the best, got the best sales pitch. Those bids are never the same. I'm sure you guys have been snuck a bid that you lost to, in the past, and you look at this bid, you go, this is nowhere near what my system was, and you try to leverage that and bring that up to the client, or, and have a sob story to the contractor, and they're not hearing it, But when you have a detailed design from day one, no, you guys are all bidding the same thing, and we're able to look at that from an educated standpoint and talk to them about the differences. Say, well, what's this one here that's $6,000, and what's this one here that's $5,000? Why do I need this one over this one? And we were able to, educate the client in that decision, and again, kind of take the sales side away from it. So, in a nutshell, that's kind of the overview of the process from beginning to end.
Nice. And it sounds like pretty early on, you are giving that client that budget number, right?
100%.
And how are you developing that without actually doing all the nuts and bolts? Is it based on previous?
No. So the nuts and bolts is happening in the background. Typically but if we got signed up, and for example, say it's a 10,000 square foot house, that first meeting or that review meeting is typically a month after we're signed up. So we're already doing a lot of the stuff in the background. We have those plans, and we're dropping in things, based on kind of that initial needs analysis with the client, and dropping a lot of those in and developing the budget based on that. And then once we review that with the client, then we can obviously go up or down as they need to VE or change or add or delete things. So
you're doing the work to figure out the budget, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So here's where I get to plug the HTA budget calculator a bit, because You know, a lot of clients, when I sign them up for design, they're like, yeah, we want to sign you up for design, but how expensive are you, right? And I'm like, well, we haven't done that work yet. Well, we really want to know kind of what it's going to cost. So it's kind of chicken and egg. So this is where I'm lazy. I'm lazy. So I find the easiest way to do everything. So in this regard, I'll go to the HTA budget calculator. I'll put in all their zones for them. I don't even make them do it. And then I'll issue a report to them. And it's really easy. It's one page. If you're not using it, use it. And it gives you a low range and it gives you a high range. And the range is so wide, typically, because a distributed audio zone could be, a Sonos Play 5 versus, invisible speakers with amplification and switching and all that other stuff. So the range is pretty wide. But what I've found is my clients never want to be at the bottom. And if they do, they're not my clients, so I can weed them out real quick. They never want to be at the top. They just want to be in the middle. So a lot of the times you can get budget commitments to all of the different categories of distributed audio, video, control system, blah, 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 by them just picking that middle number and going, here, let's shoot for that. And that gives them a comfort level, at least that they know the boundaries. And now they're involved actively in their budget decision. So it's been super helpful for me in this design phase where I just don't want to do all the work. Say, hey, here's your ranges. Where do you want to be? And we can work on that. And of course that changes. And of course they sell themselves up into better products and better finishes. But it gives them a comfort level, a good starting point, and it's super easy for you, not a bunch of work. Okay, so that's my plug for the budget calculator.
Can I
Oh, go ahead, Jason.
No, you spoke first, Bryan. Go ahead. But I was going to bring that up. I mean, different parties want different things early in the project, right? At the end of the day, the builder probably just wants a budget to put into their overall project budget. I'm amazed, from that standpoint of, we got kind of wind of a bigger project the other day, and it's a builder of ours, and I called him up and he goes, oh yeah, no, I already got the number, and I went to your website. I went to your budget calculator. I just took the middle number and I popped that in the budget. We got kind of wind of a bigger project the other day, and it's a builder of ours, and I called him up and he goes, oh yeah, no, I already got the number, and I went to your website. I went to your budget calculator. I just took the middle number and I popped that in the budget. So, really, I mean, what's great about it from us now is we're going in just because the client just wants to know they're not being taken, right? They want to be educated what the budget is, but they just want to know that you're a company that's going to be similar to other companies, plus or minus 10% or whatever, right? And then they want to work with somebody they want to work with. And I think, having the budget calculator, being able to present on your company and not on your budget, and then offer the design, process, it's such a better way of doing business.
All right, Jason, what do you want to say?
Another strategy that we employ for projects, specifically when a general contractor is bidding the project out for himself, and they're just trying to build their own spreadsheet that they send to the prospective client of theirs. For many years they would send us an RFP, and when we thought that they were asking us for a full-blown bid, and so we would have that poor sales engineer, put a proposal together, and we thought it was part of building a relationship with the builder and playing the game. And so we learned over time that they don't really care. They just want a number that is reasonably valid. So we also, as a step below a full-blown design contract, we will issue a document that we call an opinion of probable cost. It's just it's a project broken out into a couple of different categories, and then it's a cost per square foot calculation. That's sort of our historical averages. So one page, similar to what you're doing, Eric, with the budget calculator, and it's a way of providing a budget without providing a proposal. And I would encourage people to think about how that could fit into their overall sales process too. In my opinion, our expertise as an industry has been given away for free for way too long, and we need to reel that back in and gently, slowly retrain the community, the construction community, that we just can't afford to do that anymore. It's not just speakers and TVs anymore. It's lighting systems and network systems and camera systems and security, and just it's crazy how our scope is so big now.
So let's talk about the design process. You know, you're in there and you're part of the design team, and you're giving all the builder and the interior designer and architect specs they need. And as we know, our because technology is changing, our design really never stops changing. We're altering it right up into the end. So what's your line in the sand when you go, okay, we're out of this design phase and we're fully into production at this point? When do you, Bryan, where do you draw the line? What are your markers or indicators?
Yeah, I mean, I think internally, once the last bill goes out, the design deliverables have been provided and that last invoice goes out. I mean, we're really then in a production phase. Now, obviously, there's change orders and design changes within that. Even our projects that we have the design only contracts still have some design time built into them because we know that there's going to be those changes. But usually it's delivery of documents.
So once you deliver the plans and gotten everybody the specifications, you're done. You're not letting that bleed into, months and months of, product changes or whatever.
Yeah, again, I mean, it's like you said, it's a living, breathing thing, right, with technology. And so if over the course of production, like I said, we still bake some design time into that for red lines. If it's a design only contract and somebody else is doing the work, it depends if they've hired us to continue to do updates over time, or at that point the local integrator is taking over that work.
And Jason, do you have a problem drawing that line? Is that pretty easy for you?
It does vary on projects. I think the earlier we get brought into the construction cycle, it can drag on. I'm currently in a dragging on situation on a really large project, where the general contractor doesn't want to sign us up yet for the full-blown contract, and they keep on asking for more and more details, and we're like, dude, this is what we need to be doing as part of the main contract. This is not contemplated in design. But I think in large part, the project has its own momentum, and the general contractor and the client know that they got to get somebody to start pulling wire or running conduit or whatever. And so it sort of naturally goes into the signature on the main contract. But,
so go ahead, Ryan.
Again, from an integrator perspective, we are still trying to sell it. We are still trying to win the contract. So we will probably employ more flexibility than David VanWert will.
Right. So David, while we got you, you've been on the integrator side, where it was more of a adversarial relationship, maybe, and now you're on the same side of the table as the client. So talk to us a little bit about, just in general, doesn't really have to be about design, just in general, what could we be doing better on the integrator side in terms of this whole sales process, whether we're selling the design, whether we're selling the system? What do you hear that we don't hear?
I think it is kind of the whole theme of this this talk is really delineating between the two. Far too often, obviously assuming someone like ourselves is not involved, there's quite a few of me out there nowadays compared to what it was 10 years ago or so. But it's educating that, the team and say, hey, it should be done this way, and look at the process of what's happening for everything else in the house, and draw that line, create that demarc in the sand of here's where it transitions from design to sales and install, if you're doing the design build type of thing, and insist upon that. If far too often, I would say, guessing at it, if there's not someone like ourselves, or an integrator pushing design, 80% of the time it's a free-for-all. You get a set of floor plans, and like Jason said, do what you do. You get that way too often, and everybody's just spinning their wheels, and it creates less professionalism as well, in my mind, as an industry as a whole. We're the only trade in the entire house that is not designed by someone else and executed by a completely different entity. We're the only one. And when we continue down this path and continue down this path, it just in general, it makes us look like, the speaker guy, and the AV guy, when, as we've all been saying, obviously all of our clients are much more than that. And all of these projects are much more than that. And I think we need to go to market as such, and position yourselves more as have a design arm, or involve someone like ourselves that does just the design part of it, and insist upon that. Using the analogy, I like analogies because clients can wrap their head around that. A client would never go to a contractor and get a referral from 2 or 3 contractors and go, I want a 10,000 square foot house. It's got 8 bedrooms and 11 bathrooms. It's a living room and a family room. Give me a bid. They're going to look at you like you're crazy. They're say, what are you talking about? Where's your architectural plans? And the same thing with an electrician and a mechanical engineer. You go to an HVAC sub and say, hey, I want air conditioning and heating in my house. Can you give me a bid? And they're going to look at you like you're an alien if you don't hand them a set of mechanical plans. They can't do it. And we should very much, trying to be doing the same thing, and just differentiate, that line between design and execution.
Got it. All good points. So the one thing I was trying to get at with you, David, was, you see the clients are a little bit more open to you about the whole technology sales process. A lot of them maybe have hired you, or a builder has hired you because they really didn't like the process they had with other integrators. What do they complain about in terms of integrators, and why might they hire you?
It's
besides the obvious smart reasons too.
Sure. It's very much that there is no process. That is single-handedly the number one complaint that we get, is that and a lot of our clients have done this before. This is not their first custom home that they've done. So they're on their second or third or fourth home. And so they've been through, for lack of a better term, that they've been through this shit show before, to where it was a mess because there is no process. And that's kind of what it all, boils down to, is that, everything's just kind of thrown at a wall, and so when you're bringing this process, including the pre-sales and kind of design and engineering, to really flush out the nuts and bolts of these things and educate the client along the way of what they're getting, be upfront with what those budgets are, because, all of this stuff is a mystery to everyone on the project. There is not a single entity that this is their specialty. And so that, it's kind of a combination of, lack of process, and just design in general, to where it makes it very confusing for clients to make an educated decision, because like we said, the typical process is it's the Wild West. 3 guys come out and do what they do, and you have 3 bids that are nowhere near the same. You've got somebody super low, like you said, Eric. You have somebody really low, somebody at the top, and somebody in the middle. I'm just going to pick the guy in the middle, and have no idea what any of that stuff is. And so, bringing a process and a design process into the mix really allows you to educate the client on upfront budgets, what they're getting. Educate them. To at the end of the day, I always tell our clients is that my primary goal is to allow you to make an educated decision on who, the not only the best team might be, but what the best solution might be. And it really boils down to, again, process and education.
Got it. So a question from the peanut gallery is, how do you handle design for spec houses? Jason?
Oh, yeah. That's...
Well, David, go ahead.
Yeah.
You do insane designs for spec houses that are ridiculous. I'm like, this is a spec house? Really? But go ahead.
I would say like 40% of our projects are specs. So it happens a lot. And it's really talking to the developers and pushing value and say, hey, we understand where you should be spending money, where you shouldn't be spending money, and focus on that aspect of things. The developer, who is going to be your ultimate client in a spec, is concerned with ROI. They want to put in technology that's going to fit a potential homeowner's needs with the budget that they're working with. And there's going to be certain things that you can approach it that way of hey, here I'm here to help you show this house better, and I can educate you as to what the hot points are of certain bells and whistles that are going to show well. Is a $1,500 pair of speakers going to show well to a potential homeowner? No, they could care less. So you mix and match and educate the team onto, here's what I would recommend, and push them on the fancier things. Your voice control or your video walls. A lot of the things that a prospective homeowner is going to walk in and go, wow, that's impressive, and they're going to remember that. Use your sales process to really kind of scale back some of the things that you might recommend, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. A master series Sony on the wall, a potential homeowner does not care what that TV is, and likely does not know what that TV is. So using that to kind of whittle down on some of the things to save on budget, but then maybe up some of the things that will increase value to the developer.
So I know there's limiting beliefs of how much technology you can sell into a spec house, and that's probably where the question came from. So, David, what's the most expensive spec house you've designed from a technology?
I currently have one that is close to being done that the budget for it was 1.5 million.
And that's excluding lighting and shades?
Yes.
Yeah, so 1.5 in AV control, security, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Jay, how do you approach spec home design, or do you do much of that?
We do a lot less in Orange County, for sure. But when we do, Dave VanWert said it perfectly. It's about a game. We call it like checking all the boxes off on the sales brochure.
Any more to add there, Bryan?
Oh, I think we're similar to Jason. We have not done many. I think it's to David's point, what's going to add value, and that sort of thing. I think technology is often very personal. So, in those scenarios, we're leaving it open to, lots of, whether they do Sonos or a control system, you kind of leave it open to that. But the other idea is we usually will provide a document that just kind of what's there and what are potential upgrades, right? So yeah, you can put that speaker in, but here's an option where you can put a better speaker in, and that sort of thing. So.
The group wants to know what you guys charge for hourly rates. I think, Bryan, you said $175 and then $150 for CAD drawings.
Correct.
Jason, how do you price your design people out?
Flat at $150.
Yeah, and David, you probably charge more, is my guess.
Yeah, we don't do too much in the hourly range. In most cases, it's a fixed fee. But when we do have hourly services, $185.
Got it. Okay, so kind of now in the case of Bryan and Jason, do you refund that money or apply it or fake apply it?
Yeah, we apply it to the contract.
Okay,
yeah,
so basically they get all that money back.
Well, I mean, we've essentially just pre-charged them for part of our engineering scope of work.
Got it.
Right, because we're doing floor plans and thermals and electrical, things like that anyway. So
got it.
They paid for it 9 months before they would have otherwise.
Got it. So if let me understand it. So if a contract was $200,000 and you had $15,000 worth of design in there, it would still be a $200,000 contract at the end, but you're taking that 15 and crediting it back off, right? As opposed to charging 15 and 185.
Right.
Does that make sense? Okay. Got it. Bryan, do you credit anything back?
No, I don't think we credit back. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's kind of, I guess, 6 one way, half dozen the other. But in a typical $250,000 project, I would assume that there's $15,000, $20,000 of design. We're paying that at the beginning, and so that the resulting proposal that goes out to bid has $15,000 or $20,000 less of design in it. So no, we don't actually credit back. It's just more of the resulting proposal in theory should be lower.
Got it. Well, I think we've answered all our questions. You guys did an amazing job. I'll give David a little chance to do a plug to get just a little 1 minute. How, if an integrator, you know, obviously most of your work comes directly from clients, but if an integrator needed some help in the design documentation or perhaps theater design, just give a little 60 seconds of what you do.
Sure. It's when we do work for integrators or brought in by integrators, it's primarily for theaters. So when you have that client that is, or you prefer not to use a service like a Cinematech and don't have the budget for a Tony Grimani or a Paradise theater, that's kind of where we sit right in that middle section, you know, to where you need full acoustic design or would like full acoustic design and potentially sound isolation and just, you know, general theater plans. That's kind of where we sit in for that mix. So,
and also if you're an integrator that's in someplace other than LA or New York and you get a client that has the capability of doing DCI theaters, David can help you out with that as well, because you don't want to tackle a DCI theater your first time without some help. So we know David does that well. All right, guys, that's it. I'm going to bring Josh back on. You guys are amazing. Joshy, let's go. Wrap it up.
All right. Well, everyone, thanks. It was a great learning experience sharing this. And as you could see, these integrators and David are, and Eric as well, are being successful with this charging for design. And I really do think this is absolutely important. Your skill set and what it takes years for you to learn to do is something that should not be undervalued. And when integrators are out there giving away all this design work for free, it lessens the importance of what you do, and which was brought up. But just to reiterate that, it makes you more professional. And the good news that I could share in my outreach and talking to builders, interior designers, and architects, they are increasingly understanding the need for technology and the role technology takes in their clients' lives. So it used to be a fight. It isn't a fight anymore. And what's going for you, of course, is what the pandemic has taught us when we're all locked in our homes, and now the clients need technology and want more technology than ever. I'm speaking to the choir, you know all this, but capitalize on that. So you really are going to professionalize yourself, and in your marketing aspect, when you're out there talking to the architects and designers, let them know that really we're a three-phase company. They don't know this. And the three phases would be: first, your design and consultation. This is the phase we're talking about today. It's its own deliverable, it's its own fee. Second is your contracting, which is what they think of you already. And then third is the the service aspect, that it's an ongoing relationship that you're going to have with the client for fixing things that go wrong and also for future upgrades. I talk to a lot of integrators, a lot of architects, designers, and builders. So when I'm saying this stuff, it's because I'm hearing a lot back from them and sharing that with you. So do that in your marketing and go out there and build those relationships with them. And it's going to be great when the architect and designer and builder, when they get us a project, that one of the first things they do is think of, okay, what's the technology design going to be? We're working hard on here at HTA, but you're the boots on the ground that have to build those relationships too. So let's keep this high up on our list to kind of change that tide and professionalize what we do. If you need any advice on how HTA factors into all this, you heard them talk about the budget calculator today. It's a key thing that will help. Let me know. We're always up to to help you be more successful in building these relationships with these important trade partners. So I want to thanks everybody. Thanks to all our panelists today. Thank you for our supporting brands that help us put these things on. And we look forward to seeing you on May 25th as we talk about cybersecurity, our next webinar. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Everybody.